In just 8 minutes, $2 million in classified budget transfers. Kash Patel didn't expect the receipts. He didn't expect the audit trail. Cameras caught everything. The chamber went silent. What did Jasmine Crockett reveal that made the FBI director's entire narrative collapse in real time? At exactly 2:14 p.m. on a Tuesday that would change Washington forever, Representative Jasmine Crockett walked into the House Judiciary Committee hearing room like a prosecutor who had already won her case. The mahogany tables gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, while reporters shuffled papers and adjusted cameras. Kash Patel sat at the witness table, his FBI badge reflecting light, surrounded by stacks of declassified memos and congressional subpoenas. He looked like an investigator who had seen too many lies, but today he would become the one being investigated. "Director Patel," Crockett began, her voice cutting through the murmur of the packed gallery. "You've spent considerable time discussing transparency and accountability in your opening statement." Her hands rested calmly on a manila folder that seemed to glow under the lights. "I have some questions about your commitment to those principles." Patel leaned forward slightly, his jaw set with confidence. "Congresswoman, I've dedicated my career to rooting out corruption wherever it hides. The American people deserve nothing less." The first red flag should have been Crockett's slight smile. The second should have been how she opened that folder without breaking eye contact. "Excellent. Then you can help us understand these financial transfers." She lifted a document that made Patel's face drain just slightly of color. On March 15, 2024, exactly $1.8 million was transferred from the FBI's Counterintelligence Division to an unnamed consulting firm. "Can you explain this transaction?" 47 seconds of silence. The cameras zoomed in on Patel's hands as they moved restlessly across the table. His mouth opened, then closed. "Finally, Congresswoman, I'd need to review the specific documentation to provide accurate." "I have it right here." Crockett's interruption was surgical. She held up another page. "The consulting firm is registered to a shell company. That shell company has 3 board members. Would you like me to read their names?" Twitter exploded. Crockett, as the receipts began trending, Fox News producers scrambled to fact-check in real time. CNN's legal analysts leaned forward in their studio chairs, but nothing compared to what was happening in that hearing room. Patel's transformation was visible. The confident FBI director, who had walked in like he owned the place, now sat like a defendant watching his alibi crumble. His legal advisor whispered urgently in his ear, but Patel waved him off with trembling fingers. "The FBI operates numerous confidential operations that require," he began. "Confidential operations or personal consulting contracts?" Crockett's question hit like a hammer. "Because according to this IRS filing, one of those board members received a $680,000 payment 3 days after you were confirmed as director." The chamber froze. Even the court stenographer's fingers paused over her keys. Gasps rippled through the gallery like shock waves. Republican committee members who had been ready to defend Patel suddenly found their phones very interesting. At exactly 2:19 p.m., Crockett delivered the knockout punch. "Director Patel, did you or did you not personally approve the transfer of $4.2 million in taxpayer funds to consulting firms that you had financial connections to before your confirmation?" She placed 3 more documents on the table. "Because these bank records suggest you did." The color completely drained from Patel's face. His knuckles went white as he gripped the edge of the witness table. For 6 full seconds, the only sound in the room was the hum of air conditioning and the rapid clicking of camera shutters. The transfers were part of ongoing investigations that I cannot discuss in an open setting." Patel stammered, his voice cracking slightly. Then, let's discuss them in closed session, Crockett replied smoothly. Unless you'd prefer to explain to the American people right now how the man who promised to drain the swamp became the swamp. Social media erupted. Drain the Swamp started trending alongside Patel Exposed. Cable news networks cut into regular programming. Phone calls poured into congressional offices. But the real earthquake was happening right there, in room 241 of the Rayburn House office building. Patel's FBI career, built on promises of transparency and anti-corruption crusades, was unraveling in real time. His carefully constructed image as the outsider taking on the deep state was being exposed as elaborate theater. The man who had spent years accusing others of financial impropriety was being caught in his own web of secret payments and shell companies. The irony was lost on no one. Kash Patel, who had made his name investigating corruption, was being steadily dismantled by a congresswoman who had done her homework. Every document Crockett produced was another nail in the coffin of his credibility. Every stammered response was another admission that his entire narrative had been built on lies. At 2:22 p.m., exactly 8 minutes after Crockett's first question, Patel's chief of staff received an urgent text message. The president's office was watching. Justice Department officials were being briefed. FBI field offices across the country were being quietly informed that their director's position was becoming untenable. Congresswoman Crockett, the committee chairman, interrupted. I think we should move to closed session to protect any ongoing investigations. But Crockett wasn't finished. Mr. Chairman, the American people have a right to know if their FBI director has been using classified budgets to enrich his associates. This isn't about protecting investigations. This is about protecting the integrity of our institution. The room erupted in applause from the gallery, quickly gavelled down by the chairman. Republicans on the committee exchanged worried glances. Democrats tried to hide their satisfaction, but everyone understood what they had just witnessed. The systematic destruction of a political figure who had overplayed his hand. Patel's transformation was complete. The aggressive, confident investigator who had entered the room was now a cornered bureaucrat whose lies had been exposed in the most public way possible. His career in law enforcement, his political ambitions, his carefully cultivated image as a corruption fighter, all of it was crumbling under the weight of evidence he never saw coming. But the most devastating moment was still to come. As Patel began gathering his papers with shaking hands, Crockett pulled out one final document. Director Patel, before you leave, I have one more question. Her voice cut through the noise of reporters packing up and committee members conferring. This email chain between you and Dimitri Volkov, are you familiar with that name? Patel's blood ran cold. The entire room went silent again. Even his legal advisors stopped whispering. Dimitri Volkov was a name that should never be spoken aloud in a congressional hearing, let alone connected to an FBI director. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Congresswoman. Really? Because according to these encrypted communications recovered from a seized server in Romania, you and Mr. Volkov discussed the transfer of sensitive FBI database access in exchange for cryptocurrency payments, totaling. Crockett held up printed emails with timestamps and digital signatures. Would you like me to read his response when you asked about covering your tracks? The silence was deafening. Committee members stared in shock. Republican defenders looked like they had been physically struck. Even Patel's own staff began quietly distancing themselves, sliding chairs imperceptibly away from the witness table. This is classified intelligence that shouldn't be discussed in open session, Patel whispered, his voice barely audible over the microphone. Mr. Volkov is a known Russian intelligence operative. Director Patel, the classification level is less important than the treason level, Crockett's words landed like artillery shells. Did you or did you not provide classified FBI database access to foreign intelligence operatives in exchange for personal financial gain? At exactly 2:28 p.m., Kash Patel did something unprecedented in modern congressional hearings. He invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination while serving as a sitting FBI director. The room exploded. Cameras flashed like strobe lights. Reporters screamed questions. Committee members shouted over each other. The chairman's gavel became meaningless against the roar of a political earthquake, measuring 9.0 on the corruption scale. Security had to escort Patel out through a back entrance as protesters and media swarmed the building. His FBI security detail looked embarrassed to be protecting someone who had just implicated himself in potential espionage. The sight of America's top law enforcement official fleeing Congress under police protection would be replayed for years. By 2:45 p.m., emergency meetings were being convened at the highest levels of government. The President was being briefed on Air Force One. Senate Majority Leader was canceling his afternoon schedule. The Attorney General was reportedly seen running through Justice Department hallways with a phone pressed to his ear. The hearing was adjourned at 2:31 p.m. By 3:00 p.m., resignation speculation was rampant across Washington. By 4:00 p.m., 3 Republican senators had called for a full investigation. By 6:00 p.m., Patel's name was trending worldwide alongside terms like corruption, shell companies, and deep state hypocrisy. Jasmine Crockett had done more than corner an FBI director with evidence. She had demonstrated that, in American monocracy, the truth still mattered more than political theater. She had shown that thorough preparation and careful investigation could still triumph over bluster and misdirection. Most importantly, she had proven that no one, regardless of their position or political connections, was above accountability. What made Crockett's performance even more remarkable was how methodically she had built her case. Each document was strategically ordered, each question designed to corner Patel further into his web of lies. Legal experts would later analyze her questioning technique as a masterclass in cross-examination, comparing it to legendary courtroom moments that changed American legal history. The Texas Congresswoman had spent months preparing for this moment. Her staff had worked around the clock, following financial trails, verifying documents, and building an airtight case that even Patel's most skilled lawyers couldn't dismantle. The Romanian server intelligence had come from a joint FBI-CIA operation that Patel himself had authorized, never imagining it would expose his own crimes. Behind the scenes, Crockett's team had coordinated with international intelligence agencies, financial regulators, and whistleblowers within the FBI itself. 3 unnamed agents had provided crucial documentation about Patel's suspicious activities, risking their own careers to expose what they called the most dangerous corruption they'd ever witnessed at the Bureau. The encrypted communications with Volkov weren't just about money, they revealed a systematic compromise of American national security. Patel had allegedly provided access to FBI databases containing the identities of foreign assets, ongoing counterintelligence operations, and classified surveillance methods. The potential damage to national security was incalculable. This isn't just corruption, former CIA Director John Brennan would later tell CNN. This appears to be the largest intelligence breach since Aldrich Ames. The difference is that Ames was a mid-level analyst. Patel was running the entire FBI. As news of Volkov's identity spread, intelligence agencies worldwide began damage assessments. Allied nations questioned what sensitive fensmen might have been compromised. The State Department faced a diplomatic crisis as foreign partners demanded explanations about the security of shared intelligence. She destroyed him with his own evidence, one senior Democratic aide told reporters afterward. Patel signed off on the investigation that led to his downfall. The irony is almost poetic. The aftermath was swift and decisive. News outlets raced to verify Crockett's documents. Financial experts analyzed the money trail she had exposed. Legal scholars debated the implications of an FBI director potentially enriching associates through classified budget allocations. The story dominated news cycles for days, reshaping conversations about corruption, accountability, and the abuse of power in federal law enforcement. But perhaps the most significant impact was what Crockett's performance represented: the power of preparation over bluster, evidence over rhetoric, and accountability over political protection. In just 8 minutes, she had reminded everyone watching that democracy works best when its representatives do their homework and demand answers. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a badge or a subpoena, it's truth, archived and revealed at the right moment. What happens when someone who built their career fighting corruption gets exposed for the very crimes they claimed to oppose? If integrity can't survive transparency, was it ever real? If this story revealed the importance of accountability, don't just watch. Like, share, and subscribe to channel where truth gets documented and lies get time-stamped. Hit the bell. The next accountability moment might involve your representative. What would you do if you uncovered evidence this explosive about a public official? Drop a comment below.